Years ago, I sat across the table from a man who'd killed someone. And before he said a single word, I'd already decided exactly who he was. And we all do this, right? You catch yourself deciding who someone is before they've even opened their mouth. The stranger who cut you off in traffic, that's my thing. The coworker who rubbed you the wrong way. We build that whole story about a person, then live like that's the truth. And the moment that story cracks, something can actually change. What happened in that room for me with that man who killed someone changed how I understand love. And hey, I'm Dr. Andy. I'm a neuropsychologist. I shared this story, part of it, on the TEDx stage at Boston University this spring. So stay with me. Let's get into it. So let me paint the picture. It was one of those first cases I had as a neuropsychologist. I drove 3 hours to a jail far away from town. I came up in my little roller bag with all my testing equipment in there. That jail held about 10,000 men. Their buzzers, steel doors sliding shut behind me, the noises of the place echoing off the concrete. I was escorted into the interview room by this guard named Sanchez, who was also trying to lose me in the process. It was kind of a game he had. I walked into this interview room. It was a small room with iced over windows and one broken clock stuck at 2:26. One table in the middle and 2 plastic chairs. And as I sat there waiting, telling myself the whole time exactly who this man, this inmate, was going to be. The man came in shackled, and I asked the guard to take the cuffs off so we could do some of our neuropsychological testing. So he sat down and immediately started sizing me up, deciding what I was. I want to be honest with you, because I had already decided who he was. A criminal, a man who did a terrible thing. That was the lens, and it was coloring everything he said. And I have a rule in me, like you have one in you. Mine says, stay sharp, stay ahead, read the threat before it reads you. That rule built a story about this man before he opened his mouth. And then it went for looking for proof. That's what the brain does. It predicts, then it collects evidence. It basically shapes perception, or what you attend to in your environment. So there were 2 people locked up in that room. Him by the state of Texas, and him again inside my perception. I was the one holding him there. And then somewhere in the hours of us working together in his life history and the testing, something cracked open in me. I started to see how wrong I was, not about what he'd done, about who he was underneath all of it. And there was this quiet moment where something in me said, no, I don't want to keep him imprisoned in this story. But setting it down wasn't easy. Everything in me was screaming that I was wrong, that I wasn't safe, that I needed to be reasonable. And I didn't push those feelings away. I let myself feel all of it in that tiny interview room. And then I decided to let it all go. The strangest thing happened after that. When I set it down, it was like stepping out of a loop I didn't know I was in. His whole face changed. The hardness softened into something almost childlike. He hadn't changed. I'd stopped holding him inside the story. And I felt something I didn't expect to feel in a jail. love. Not for what he did, for the person underneath it, for the worth in him that was never the crime. Then the part that detonated inside my mind. The same inner software running in him was running in me. Underneath both of us was the same quiet injury. Young and afraid, we learned to leave ourselves to feel safe. His took him to violence, mine took me to perfectionism, people-pleasing, achieving without end. The same root, wildly different outcomes, but the same inner pain. And my friends, you have a loop too. So let me bring this to you now. Wherever you are, notice that story about you right now. The quiet one that's been on all day, looping. That you're behind, that you're too much, you're not enough. That if you stop, something falls apart. That story is really old. And you continue to fuel it by believing in it. Now, do the thing that I did across that table. Let the dust settle. Allow the feelings to rise. Don't push them away. And set the story down. Just for this moment. Of course, you can pick it back up again later. But the invitation right now is to become aware of the loop, the story, and step out of it. And something in you might push back. This is wrong. You're not safe. This is so stupid. Be reasonable. And that's the same voice I heard across that table. It isn't your enemy. It's the part of you that learned this story keeps you safe. You don't have to fight it or obey it. Just feel it. Let it be here and let it soften. And notice what's here when the story isn't running. You breathing, held by this chair, the floor, the ground. No threat that needs the guard right now. Just this. So what I learned there and what I offer to you is that underneath even the hardest story, that inmate's, or the one that I was telling about him, there's something that was never damaged. A worth that doesn't have to be earned. That's true of you too. And let that land in you. Not as an idea, as something that you can really feel right now. And this is what I call the daily return. Daily because the mind drifts, the story will inevitably come back. The old rule picks up, that lens again, and you start holding yourself or someone else inside of that story. And every time you notice that and step out, even for, one breath, that's the practice. That's where it all changes. Because when I stepped out of my story, it gave that man the room to step out of his. And you know what? He did. That's the whole opportunity for him, for me, for you to stop believing the lie that you're unworthy, to come back to yourself right here and rest, even for a moment, in the simple fact of being you. Well, I built a 7-day devotional around exactly this called The Daily Return. 7 short readings to bring you back to your own presence, your own worth. The link is in the description. And if something here met you today, subscribe so the next one finds you too. And share it with some people who've been holding themselves inside a hard story for too long. You were never the story. You only forgot. And forgetting can be undone. Not all at once, in small returns. Dr. Andy. See you later.